The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. We sort of jokingly said that 2016 was the year of memes and 2017 will be the year of memos, if indeed the James Comey memos that I guess we're going to hear more about in detail at James Comey's testimony on Thursday end up being the blockbuster that they might be. But memes are still important. And as it turns out, Harvard University has actually rescinded the acceptances of 10 admitted students because of an offensive online chat that led to a number of memes. The Facebook group was at one point called Harvard Memes for Horny Bourgeois Teens. And it started when about 100 members of Harvard College's incoming freshman class contacted each other through the university's class of 2021 Facebook group, and they created a messaging group where you could share memes about pop culture. And I mean, you're familiar with memes, right,
Yeah,
Pat? You've seen memes before.
Memes.
So apparently some of these memes took a dark turn, according to an article published in the Harvard Crimson on Sunday. Some of the group members decided to form an offshoot group where you could share R-rated memes, according to a student who spoke to the Crimson. And the founders of the group chat demanded that students post provocative memes in the larger group to be admitted to the smaller group. I guess some kind of initiation or hazing or whatever. And it was really, really bad. Some of them referencing the hanging of a Mexican child as an activity called piñata time. Others talking about being aroused by sexually abusing children, blah, 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 blah. University officials caught on. Administration officials looked into this in more detail, and they have selected at least 10 incoming students who participated in the group chat who will not be allowed to actually go to Harvard.
So when I first saw this story, I saw that invitations had been rescinded due to social media posts.
Yeah.
And I had just thought, maybe this has to do with underage drinking or just pictures of these kids partying.
Right.
And my sympathy went out to them because I was thinking, they worked so hard to get into Harvard University, and they're going to take that away from them over one mistake. And something that, pretty much everyone in their adolescence does.
Sure.
It's not like it's uncommon. Now that you know that, these memes are actually something that's racist and, not advocating necessarily, but, promoting sexual assault and joking about it.
Joking about it, I think, is the key thing.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And when asked about it by the Washington Post a couple days ago, Rachel Dane, who's a spokeswoman for Harvard, said, "We do not comment publicly on the admission status of individual applicants." So what's the overarching thing? I mean, but we might not agree specifically about what is an offensive enough meme to warrant having your offer of attendance rejected or rescinded by Harvard. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't agree. But more generally, the issue is the evaluation of someone's internet history to determine whether they are acceptable or not to be part of your school. We know that with employment, it's widely known now that social media history is looked at, not only LinkedIn, which is more business related, but if somebody has an unprotected Facebook page, if you're a potential employer, you might look at what that person's been posting to Facebook to get a more general idea of what that person might be like. Why is it different with college admissions?
Right, and universities have been doing this for a while. I saw something to the effect of around 30% of colleges look into applicants' social media presence.
Yeah.
And you'd have to imagine if 30% of schools overall are doing it, then the most prestigious schools like Harvard would be doing it as well.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So I don't have a problem with that insofar as it's 2017, right? To pretend that the only information that is available to determine whether someone would be a good or not a good fit for a job, or someone that a school wants to admit or not admit, the idea that you're limited only to their application, their SAT scores, their list of volunteering opportunities, and a 500-word essay, just completely unbelievable, right? Obviously, there's more information available, and people are going to look for that information.
They obviously have the right to do it. It is just a shame when these students, really careers and their whole life, something they built up so much is destroyed over something so trivial as like drinking and partying. Obviously, this isn't the same thing.
No.
You'd think that in this instance, students who are smart enough to get into Harvard would know better, not only to be enlightened enough not to put up these things, but just to know that their school could look into this stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's not the offense that Harvard is taking to it, but Harvard is saying, hey, we're supposed to only admit really smart people here. And if someone is dumb enough to post these memes online, are they really Harvard material from an intelligence perspective, not from a morals and ethics perspective?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're super book smart, maybe they know engineering or math or whatever too, but just don't understand maybe like the social skills that you'd get just knowing that you're not supposed to put that stuff online.
I recently read this book, Bringing Down the House by Ben Mesrich, about the MIT blackjack team. And something, Harvard, wow. MIT is not the same as Harvard, but what point that was made in this book was that you weren't exactly talking about a group predisposed to have the best social skills in terms of MIT. And whether that's a stereotype or not, I don't know. But apparently it applies to some degree to Harvard, although maybe less so than MIT. I don't know.
I'm just fascinated that they have a blackjack team. So they're counting cards,
yes,
which is frowned upon, but not illegal.
Not illegal in the United States, although in other countries, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I'll talk about that book in more detail because I am going to recommend it. And there's a whole interesting subculture behind that book and Ben Mesrich's writing. Anyway, we're getting off track. Some people may have heard that we have today, in addition to my voice and Pat's voice, we're also graced by the construction noises, which have restarted above our heads. Now, people who have been with the show for a while will remember 9 months ago, a year ago, when we were dealing with major construction above our heads, the old owners of our building are no longer own the building we're in. There's new owners, and they have decided they didn't like the work that was done upstairs a year ago. They are now doing new work, so it's all starting anew, Pat. I mean, we're back to negotiating the construction once again, except with completely different owners now.
Oh, and I love it. Halfway through a point, I start losing my train of thought because I think that the roof is going to cave in above me.
So far, no cave-ins, and it got pretty loud last time. So the structural integrity of the building seems okay, but the soundproofing is something else. Okay, a couple of other quick stories. EpiPen. Remember this controversy months ago about the cost of EpiPens, $609 for a box of 2 EpiPens. And this led to widespread outrage. News stories about people who needed EpiPens and couldn't afford them, counterpoints being made by insurance companies and big pharma. Long story short, all of that outcry over the EpiPen prices have done nothing to actually lower the prices. There's an article in the New York Times pointing out that nothing has really changed, even though EpiPen was sort of like the poster child for out-of-control drug prices. There's about $1 worth of epinephrine in an EpiPen, and Mylan, the company that sells it, was selling a box of 2 EpiPens for $609. You had presidential candidates talking about EpiPens. You had both parties in Congress talking about EpiPens, and they're going to attack Mylan for the price increase. And like with so many things in our media news cycle, Pat, nothing has really changed, even though the situation with the EpiPen is basically still the same.
It's because this idea of a free market utopia doesn't really work when the product is something that people need.
Yeah.
Because then you're just price gouging. I mean, you'd like to think that with anything else, if the price soars, then there's going to be enough negative PR to where they're going to have to bring it down or just to compete with other companies.
Right.
Not so much when your clientele isn't just demanding a product, but actually needing it.
When you talk about the healthcare, and I hate to use the term market, but when you talk about the world of healthcare and health insurance and pharmaceuticals, you actually cannot sensibly apply standard economic principles to it because it is not a normal market. When you analyze healthcare, and by healthcare I mean medical treatments and also pharmaceuticals and medical products, right? It's all falling under healthcare. If you look at elasticity, right, which is a standard concept in economics, there is nothing normal at all about how that applies to the healthcare industry. You have a very weird demand situation where until someone has a particular condition where they need a treatment or medicine, there is essentially no demand for these products. And at the point at which someone needs that because of a health condition, you have a completely different demand curve altogether. And that's something that people just don't understand. When you talk about let's open up healthcare to the free market because we want the free market to decide it's the system that works best, there's nothing about healthcare that warrants being in a free market environment.
And ironically, Bernie Sanders and I think Amy Klobuchar, too, in January wanted to make it so people in the United States or insurance companies or whatever could import EpiPens from Canada.
Yeah.
And that cost about $290 per unit instead
Still
of the
crazy,
$600.
but less.
Still crazy, but less, exactly. And you'd think that all the Democrats will get behind this. Even some Republicans crossed over, like John McCain and even Ted Cruz and Rand Paul. But unfortunately, because of some corporate Democrats like Cory Booker, they were unable to do it. You take a look at who finances Cory Booker's campaigns. It's oftentimes Big Pharma. So yeah, it's a big messed up system.
We talk all the time about Republicans and Democrats are different on many issues as a drill starts going above my head. Republicans and Democrats are different on many issues, and on many issues they're basically the same. And when it comes to a lot of these big business issues, they're very, very similar, Republicans and Democrats, no doubt about it. Let me talk briefly about United Airlines. United Airlines has not had a great string of public relations recently, and now orchestral violinist Yennefer Correa is accusing a United Airlines employee of trying to, quote, wrestle away her violin as she was trying to board a flight at Houston George Bush Intercontinental Airport in the United States. She was actually on her way to perform with the Missouri Symphony Orchestra. She published a letter describing the incident written by Houston lawyer Philip McNaughton. And she says that she was in the process of getting on this flight from Houston to St. Louis, where she was going to perform, when a supervisor at United Airlines refused to permit her to carry the violin onto the plane. Ms. Correa explained, "No, I have to have it with me. What options do we have?" The United supervisor reportedly told the violinist, "There are no options," became belligerent when the passenger asked for the supervisor's name, and then reportedly with no provocation, the supervisor lunged for the case, the violin case, and tried to physically wrestle it away from the musician. At that point, the passenger threatened to call security. The supervisor threatened to call security, and the passenger said, "Please call security." And at that point, the United supervisor reportedly ran away. So individually, this might be one person who had no clue how to manage the situation, but it's really not looking good for United, especially with United blaming air traffic control for flight delays, which now is at least part of the story that's being told with Trump's privatization of ATC.
Okay, so once you're on the plane, you're completely subjected to United's rules. You have to listen to the flight attendants and follow everything that they say. But the thing is, she hadn't even boarded the plane yet.
Right.
At that point, I mean, she's still free enough to turn around and say, well, I need my violin on me. I guess I'm not going to get on this flight.
Right.
She could have just left. So
at that point, to wrestle the violin away, it would be crazy. Listen, we're talking about a violin here, right? Not a gun. To wrestle a violin away on the plane, it's not like we'd be saying, well, that makes perfect sense. But your point is that on the plane, you have to go by what the flight crew tells you.
It's a different set of rules.
Different set of rules. You're standing in an airport, as described here, and someone is physically wrestling a classical instrument away from you.
And here's the kicker. United allows small instruments to be on their planes. They just have to be in a hard case, and you'd have to imagine if she's in an orchestra, she has a hard case for her violin.
You would imagine, although I didn't read that one way or the other. But you have to assume that she's not carrying it around in some flimsy cloth case of some kind.
Yeah, so they allow like guitars and violins. They just have to be stored properly, either up above or under the seat in front of you. So, I mean, this is just completely wrong on all levels here.
Do you remember that viral video? And I don't remember if it was United or American Airlines, about a broken guitar that then some guy whose guitar was broken made an entire music video or something like that about United or American having broken his guitar, and the video went completely viral. Does that ring a bell to you?
No, but it sounds like maybe he made enough off of that video to replace his guitar.
I think he probably did. Yeah, I think he
There's
probably did.
There's often crowdfunding pages whenever these things happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting when a crowdfunding page for a $300 item raises $50,000.
Yeah. Like,
and
I guess the experience was worth it to you then.
Apparently. Anyway, continued bad press for United.
Would we have heard about this story if it wasn't for the other things going on in United?
I know what you're saying.
Months,
Yeah,
like
there's
the guy being dragged off of the flight.
There's a pile-on mentality. Now that people are talking about United, more people are talking about United, and it makes more headlines. If it had been, I don't know, Southwest, would we be hearing about it when it comes to a violin? Although there's been plenty of bad stories about Southwest as well. Probably not, I would say, given what we know about media. All right, that's it for today. We're going to try to get the construction noise solved for you.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.